I'm not gonna do this introduction like last time.
That's a great start, man.
Yeah. Welcome to Retrogame Talkshow. I'm Bob Engstrand.
Are you now? Well, I'm Jari Karjalainen, and we have decided to do another one of these random ramblings episode because, well, I think it's high time we do another one of these free jazz kind of things.
Random Ramblings episode 2, officially.
Yeah.
We did our first Random Ramblings, when was that? Back in last year?
I can't even remember. A year ago?
Yeah.
Maybe over a year ago, I think.
It was in 2018 at least, right?
Yep. Definitely.
And
well, it's the 3rd of July 2019 right now. And speaking of which, tomorrow is the national, what is it called? The Americans thing.
What is that
What's it
called?
called?
Is that Independence Day or is it just...
Exactly, Independence Day,
4th of July, yeah. That's tomorrow, 2019.
Yeah. Does it sound like we're kind of waking up still? Because I feel like I'm still waking up, so...
Yeah, it's extremely early morning for me and Jari. It's around noon here in Finland right now, and
so if we sound like Marco Repairs, then that's only to be expected.
If we sound like two sort of mentally challenged rednecks from Finland, it's because right now in this very moment we are, and I've only had one cup of coffee. Do you like my eagerly?
Exactly. Okay, that's...
Yeah, I actually want to figure out when we record the last...
episode? What?
No, the last Random Ramblings. I'm trying to figure that out here by going to our Spreaker here. Published date, 22nd of May 2018. We released Random Ramblings episode 1.
22nd of May.
22nd of May 2018, so over a year ago.
Yeah. So that was almost exactly a year before our previous episode, which was the Atari and Amiga thing.
Yeah, the episode 6, Diskettes and Dungeons. We spoke about Atari ST and Amiga 16-bit computers and games released on the 14th of May this year, 2019.
Hey, but seeing as tomorrow is the 4th of July, should we listen to some Star Spangled Banner from the C64 US Gold Loader? What do you think?
Let's do that. Let's start out by preparing 4th of July. Here we go. Yeah.
Star Spangled Banner. Have you any memories of that particular US Gold Loader, or did you ever come across it?
The US Gold Loader, can you describe it a little bit closer?
Well, it had a American flag on it with big yellow letters saying US Gold, and it had Star Spangled Banner. Yeah,
I might have seen that, but I don't recall Star Spangled Banner being involved with that. So please describe.
Well, it was used in, original tapes of US Gold, like, before the mid 80s, I think. It was used in games like Raid Over Moscow and that sort of stuff. I can't remember exactly.
Oh, I see.
What all games had that one, but... Yeah, I think the first game I played that had the US Gold Loader music was Bruce Lee, but it didn't have the flag in it. It was just, copyright text regarding the game.
Okay.
But all the US Gold regular music was included in it.
Okay, but that was only on sort of original original versions, original copies of the games, right?
Yeah.
I had so few of them. I don't think I had any US Gold original. I must have had some US Gold original games.
You should dig dug into your collection.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Speaking about Dig Dug, I have a little story.
Okay.
I was in the USA, US of A. I was in the US of A.
Back in the US.
Back in the USA. Yeah. in when was that? In the beginning of May, I think. Yeah. I think right after the Vappu celebration, Valborg celebration.
You were there.
I flew to
Brothers, right?
I was there with we had a gig with the von Herzen brothers, this Finnish band that I play with. We had a one-off show in Sarasota in Florida, and I met up my friend Sean. That we have mentioned Sean a few times on this podcast because he's active in. Well, he writes posts on. He comments on our stuff on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. I've known him for many.
By the way.
Sorry.
Greetings to Sean, by the way.
Yeah, greetings to Sean. How you doing, buddy? Share that shit. Anyway, so I met Sean and we hung around for a few days in Sarasota, and it was great. And he said, I have a gift for you. He said, I said, I hope it's not a big one because it's so tight when we're flying. It's so we only have hand luggage with us because we're only here for like 3 days. So
yeah.
And he was like, no, it can fit in your pocket. And then the next day he gave me. It's a mini arcade game that you can hold it in your hand and play it. So it looks like an arcade cabinet, game cabinet, and the game is Dig Dug. And here's the funny part that I don't even remember that I told this to Sean, but that's a game that you and I have been sort of fascinated by for many years for its funny title Dig Dug.
Yeah.
And the music is funny, the game is funny, and it's one of those maybe one of the first games that at least I played on the C64. So it has a very comic atmosphere to it. And
they don't make them like that anymore.
No. And the arcade, the little arcade game is great because it's the original music in it and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I'm gonna go get it right now. So you have the radio show for 30 seconds by yourself. I'll be right back. I'm gonna
thanks.
I'm gonna get it.
Yeah. And while Bob's doing that, then we might as well listen to some Dig Dug while at it.
Retrogame Talkshow.
I don't hear you talking.
Of course not. I just introduced to Dig Dug.
Okay.
We're gonna listen to some Dig Dug.
Yeah, I have it in my hand right now. So let's. Oh yeah, that was the. And then we go. Try to start this.
Uh-huh. That's extremely funny.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You can hear it. It has the original sounds and everything.
Yeah. So you can actually play it even though it's a sort of a mini cabinet thing.
Yeah, it's a mini cabinet with a, I don't know, very small screen inside, but there are like joysticks and buttons and everything.
That's cool.
Yeah. Great
You're gonna
stuff.
You're gonna have to take a video for it on Instagram.
Yeah, I'm not gonna promise to do that because every time I promise that I will post something on Instagram regarding to this, I forget to do it. So, but I will try to remember to take a video shot of the mini arcade Dig Dug and maybe a picture also because it looks really cool.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Sean. I really appreciate it. That was my Florida Sarasota story.
Cool. Okay. what have you been playing lately? Even retro or modern games?
I played. I mentioned this before, but I have an obsession for EverQuest. I play on the Project 99 server.
Yeah.
So that's pretty retro because it's the game is pretty much how it was back in 2001. So not that retro as this podcast usually refer to, but it's very retro.
But it's
in
still
that way.
Sort of 20 years old anyway, so it's kind of in this.
So I've been playing that pretty much lately, and it's a small community. I think we have on peak times maybe there are like 1,500 players online. That's on peak. Sometimes it's down to 400 or 500, depending on what time during the day you play.
That's quite a lot for a game of that age, I think.
Yeah, it's a very very it's a small but very hardcore and very devoted community. But other than that, I haven't really played any. I played through Skyrim maybe in the winter time. Cool. I usually play through. Talking about Elder Scrolls, Skyrim, released 2011. It's the game that I'm very fond of. I was actually introduced to that series thanks to you. I don't know if you remember that.
Vaguely. I think we were talking about those sorts of RPGs earlier on, and I think Oblivion was the first one. Or maybe it was the previous Morrowind. I don't know.
You mean the first one that I played?
Yeah, or that we talked about.
Yeah, because I remember pretty much how it was, because in 2008, I remember that I asked you if you had any recommendations for me of single-player role-playing games, because I wanted to find something that is not an online, multiplayer. Yeah. And then you just mentioned that, hey, have you checked out those Elder Scrolls? And I was like, yeah, why not? And then I bought Oblivion. I actually bought Oblivion like a CD, like a CD-ROM or DVD copy of it. DVD, so I actually have that. And
I think that's still really, the best one of the lot. But
I got really hooked on that. Well, if you ask a little bit older players who have played Morrowind, they would say that is. And I actually played Morrowind maybe 4 years ago.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, and then I think it's the games, they have become more and more mainstream and more sort of trying to reach the more casual gamers. I mean, Skyrim it's beautiful and have great soundtrack and all that, but it's very different from Morrowind, for example. Morrowind is a little bit more hardcore and a little bit more, this little bit steeper learning curve and stuff like that. But I appreciate those games. It's nice to play something that is not online. You can do it in your own tempo and you can sort of, focus. It's usually there's a nice story involved and stuff like that. So it was actually you who introduced me to the Elder Scrolls.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I haven't been playing much of modern games, or even that modern.
Oh yeah.
I think the first time that I've played anything newer than, let's say, 80s stuff was just a few days ago. I decided to reinstall Test Drive Unlimited, the first in the series. On my PC.
On what platform? On PC.
On the PC, yeah. But it had a bit of a problem regarding installing, because my motherboard on my PC is a bit too new, so it wasn't straight on compatible. It couldn't, open the game at all after the install. So I needed to. Well, it was suggested that I should update my BIOS for the PC.
It said that in the error message.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that didn't go too well, because my PC got completely hooked up. I couldn't even, open up the PC. It wouldn't load from the starting BIOS picture, and I couldn't even get into the BIOS setup after the attempted update. So I had to take out the battery from the motherboard and switch some jumpers inside the motherboard.
Wow, you did actually some hardware customization.
Yeah, and it helped. I got the stuff reset, and well, it didn't help with the Test Drive Unlimited matter. But if you're gonna want to play some Test Drive Unlimited, folks, well, it's not available on any sort of digital thing. You have to have the DVD version of it still, because it's not available anywhere else. But it doesn't work with modern motherboards, so you're gonna need to have a no CD crack. Yeah, that's right. You're gonna do some piracy in order to get to play it. Yeah, and after that, you're gonna have to do some modding, because as the game is on the DVD, it doesn't work properly unless it's connected to the servers, which don't exist anymore. So you're gonna have to download some modifications for it, and only then you're gonna be able to play the game as it's supposed to be. So
Speaking about car games, what was the game that you and I played for a very short period of time, maybe 10 years ago? This online rally.
Trackmania.
Trackmania. That was on PC also.
Yeah.
I remember that was pretty fun.
It is still fun.
Pretty addictive.
Yeah. There's many Trackmania games these days. I think the latest of them is called Trackmania Turbo, but I haven't gotten around to buying that one because, well, there's so much retro stuff going on, so I haven't had the time actually. But yeah, it's a great series. I got hooked on it from the first game, and the latest that I played was Trackmania 2 something. I can't remember the title of it, but
okay,
one of the in the 2 series.
Trackmania 2, looking for love in several wrong places.
Exactly.
No, that's not the one. No, that's another game. I got mixed up.
Yeah, I think that's sort of in the Larry sequence.
Larry.
By the way, Larry had another game just released. I haven't really checked that out, but it's called Wet Dreams Come True, and it's based in the same sort of area that the first Larry game was in. It even has the Lefties bar in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But it's sort of the 80s Larry goes into the modern world with all these Twitters and shit. So I'm kind of looking forward to playing that, but I don't think if that's gonna happen anytime soon.
Oh yeah, I just see it here. Let's just Larry, Wet Dreams Don't Dry.
Ah, yeah, that's like that was
released,
the title. Yeah.
On PC 7th November 2018. On PC and Mac.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but they have released pretty many of these Leisure Suit Larry games, I think.
Yeah. I think that's the 9th or 10th one.
Yeah. Leisure Suit Larry, yeah.
Do we have any more feedback?
Yeah. I want to mention, we haven't mentioned this Instagram user, Taburoto.
Taburoto, yeah.
Is that correctly? I'm not sure if that is pronounced correctly.
I think
Taburoto.
if you attempt to pronounce it in Japanese, like you have to change the R to sort of L-ish.
Taburoto.
So it's like Taburoto.
Taburoto. Yeah, greetings to Taburoto, who's been following us from the Instagram user Taburoto.
Yeah.
Who's been following us from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Making comments on our social media pages, and it's always a pleasure reading your posts. Thank you very much.
Uplifting.
Yes.
Cool. Oh yeah, I did have some feedback a while ago from actually one of our more dedicated listeners, Sami, who gave me some good constructive feedback on the videos. Actually, he said that regarding our previous episode that there's this flashing effect that I did for the Retrogame Talkshow logo that I use in the videos, that the flashing effect should be sort of turned down a notch or two, because looking at the video as it is might cause epilepsy.
Oh,
yeah. Which I have to admit is possible. But I didn't really think about it until I was nearly finished with the video, so I just couldn't be bothered to start all over with a psychedelic color flashing text effect. But
Or maybe you are one of those sick bastard who wants to create epilepsy of innocent people listening to our podcast.
Yeah, maybe it's just the sort of cover band idiot in me that wants to use some flash effects all the time. Full on strobes and shit. But yeah, I'll definitely do something about it for the next episode video when necessary. Except, obviously this being a random ramblings episode, I'm not gonna do a special video because I didn't do one for the first random ramblings episode either, and I think we're gonna keep them that way as much as possible.
You can use some kind of warning text in the beginning, like warning: watching this video will cause epilepsy, anxiety, nausea, insomnia, depression.
Retro ramblings and shit.
Retro rambling, depression, and all that jazz.
Yeah. And Sami also commented on the what is retro and what is nostalgic thing that we did in the last episode by pretty much agreeing to what we said, that it's definitely a personal thing. And for him, the most recent nostalgic time is the generation when the first Xbox came. So I think, well, it's personal.
It is a personal definition, because when I got my C64 and played games in the mid 80s, my father and my mother, they wondered, what is that horrific modern noise? For them nostalgia is the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, of course.
And then for me, those when I hear Henry's House, or these games from the mid 80s, that's nostalgic for me. But for my parents, that was like, what is this modern horrific electronic monophonic noise?
Yeah.
And like, perhaps if they hear it today, they might be, oh, I remember that. Bob played those games in the 80s. It might be a little bit less modern for them, but it goes in generations, those things,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but hey, thanks for your input, Sami, again.
Yeah, great, Sami. Kiitos.
Yep. Also, I think we had a question from one of our listeners who wanted to remain anonymous for whatever reason. Since we're such retro gaming geeks and nerds, or whatever you call, what sort of stuff do we guys eat and drink while retro gaming? in other words, favorite foods, candy, beverages. Have you had any kebab lately?
I had a kebab actually last weekend.
Ah, cool.
Yeah.
So do you want to go first?
I mean, I don't understand the question. Like, what do we eat on daily basis, or what do we eat when we record?
When we're retro gaming.
When we're retro gaming, okay.
Yeah.
I don't actually eat much when I play games.
Yeah.
I have to say that I don't snack around like that much. In the 80s, it was definitely more candy snacking while playing games.
Coca-Cola or whatever.
Yeah, basic, snacking candies, like basic Scandinavian licorice, salmiakki, salt licorice, the candy that we eat here in Scandinavia. But nowadays, when I play EverQuest, I don't think there's anything more than coffee or some random water sometimes, and also what we in Sweden call saft.
Yeah, mehu.
Yeah. Mehu in Finnish, which is
juice.
Kind of juice, sort of you buy this high concentrated juice and then you blend in a lot of water in it. That was sort of what I drank in the 80s. So we have saft, mehu, water, coffee, and we got this Nespresso machine here, so it's pretty. Yeah. And also, I put a little bit of cream. I put a little bit of whole cream in my coffee, just a little bit of that.
So, coffee is definitely the thing.
Yeah, I don't really eat much when I play game. There's no time to when you play EverQuest. You are constantly in fear, constant danger. There's no time to sort of reach for a spoon and shove food down your throat when you're playing. It's kind of rare.
There's no pause button, you know.
No, and I wanna eat before I play games. So when I go and sit down, you know, I don't need to make a food break or anything like that for a long time. So, but there's definitely water or coffee around.
Yeah.
What about you?
Because I like to do some barbecuing while playing.
Like in the room, you have like
room.
Yeah, flames and shit going on.
Exactly. Because we live in Lappi, we do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, but it's just water or coffee for me also. I mean, you eat when you have to eat, and then you play.
Yeah.
It's two separate things.
Yeah, it's a very separate thing. Like don't mix food and gaming, and same with the bedroom. Don't mix food with those things you do there. And that's sick. You know, like don't.
Unless you're Leisure Suit Larry.
Oh, does he do that? Like.
I don't think there was an apple involved in the first game though.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, at least he's healthy.
Yeah. Health food maniac.
Yeah.
Okay. What else do we have?
What else do we have to talk about? Some random stuff. You mentioned something before we started to record about some recent news in the retro gaming world. Like, what was that all about?
Well, there's been a lot going on lately. I mean, I think the retro platforms are currently living in a new peak, I think, because there's so much new games coming on almost every platform, like the ZX Spectrum, Atari stuff, Commodore 64, obviously. Even Commodore Amiga now has a lot of new games coming up for it, and you know. But the high point for me, I think, lately has been the resurfacings of old scene guys like John Darnell, who did the Kane games originally for Mastertronic, Carl Hernell, who did what did he do? He did the Velocipede and Melon Mania, Cleanup Service, that sort of stuff in the mid 80s. Steve Day, who did some graphics, loader graphics in the 80s. Rob Hubbard even resurfaced for one game, I think.
Oh yeah.
Martin Walker, who did what did he do? He did Hunter's Moon, and then now when Thalamus came around again as Thalamus Digital, they came for Martin Walker and called him up to do a remake on the C64 of the Hunter's Moon, and now he's doing another game. And there's all sorts of guys from the old days coming back to the C64, and I think that's amazing, because you know, we need those guys around in a way.
I want to ask you, for people who, including me, how do they release these modern games nowadays? What kind of? Because I guess they don't release this on 3.5-inch floppy disks anymore. So what kind of? They do.
They do. Yes, they do in 3.5-inch floppy disks, and they do in tapes. They do cartridges, but they also do like digital downloads.
That's what I was thinking. I thought that if it's only digital download, you would need some sort of technical peripherals for your Atari or ST or Amiga, whatever you have. But if they release it also in the sort of original package with floppy disk, then you don't need to have any other technical gear for downloading games.
Yeah, most of the sort of high quality games are released in physical format that are straight possible to play on retro platforms. Okay. And that's the great thing about it. Even for NES and Sega and all those other retro platforms that have cartridges in them. You know, they're specific sort of cartridges. And they get released on cartridges and, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And that's
very
great
practical.
Thing. Yeah.
Because then the gamers don't need to, then they don't need to buy extra gear to be able to be able to load those games somehow. So you can use the same setup. So as Marco Repairs would say, high quality.
Yeah, high quality. Yeah, that's great about the modern retro gaming world, I think. But there's a lot of sort of worse stuff going on as well, I think, because, well, this is something to do with Nintendo, obviously, because they've always been this sort of black sheep in the retro gaming world in a way, because they tend to be like very protective about their, you know, copyrights and shit. So they have in 2018, some time ago, they've taken down various ROMs download sites that had any NES or Sega ROMs for download.
Okay.
Because of their copyrights, and these were sites that have been around for almost 20 years, I think. And all of a sudden, because Nintendo and Sega are, you know, releasing these new retro mini sort of consoles that have their old games in them, then they all of a sudden have all the copyrights again, and they are protecting them like maniacs. And
okay. What about the ROM sites for MAME, the MAME arcade? Does that affect that site as well?
Well, I have no idea actually how much they affect those, because I know there are Nintendo and Sega arcade games around that could be affected by that, but I have no idea, because I haven't really downloaded much MAME games lately. But
yeah, it was many years ago. I was pretty active in those. It was a site that I visited a lot, because I downloaded a lot of ROMs for this MAME. You can tell people what that is. Jari, you can explain what MAME is.
Yeah, it's the most common multi-arcade system emulator.
Yeah.
That can handle all the... Well, I'm not sure if all arcade hardware, but it emulates most of the arcade hardware.
Yeah, so it's for PC and Mac, and you can play... It lets you play all the biggest arcade games that were released in the 70s, 80s, 90s, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of arcades, I actually remembered some more arcade games that I got to play. I mean, we talked about some arcade games in our second episode and not afterwards. And I think it was like a couple of weeks ago that I finally remembered some more arcade games that I played. Well, this was after my teenage years actually, but Crazy Taxi is still available on some big gas station here in Finland, probably near Kajaani or something.
Yeah.
It has been there for years, and I think it still is there. And then I played Commando on one of the cruise ships between Finland and Sweden.
That's really nice.
Yeah, and another cruise ship game was Harley Davidson and LA Riders. It was a motorcycling game, obviously.
Yeah.
With a motorcycle seat and handlebars, and that was a nice curiosity to play. But I have to say, being arcade games, none of those were particularly easy to play, and I only got to play them like a minute each. So that's some good money wasted there. But
yeah,
you know, it's always nice to play some arcade classics like that. And handhelds also, I remember some more handhelds that I played.
Handhelds we spoke about, was that in the first episode?
The very first episode. Yeah,
we spoke about handhelds, Game & Watch.
Yeah. One of my friends had a game called Barcode Battler. I don't know if you've heard of this one, but it's a curious... Barcode Battler, yeah. It was from the, I think, mid-90s. It was a very curious little thing. It could read a barcode of any, you know, cereal packets or whatever, books.
Okay.
Anything that had a barcode in it. And it would generate a new fighter from the barcode and make it fight against something else. And you had a bunch of regenerated fighters in it. It came as playing cards. But I don't know if I remember correctly, but I remember it was a really weird thing, that one, you know?
Yeah, I'm checking its Wikipedia page now. That is the most crazy idea that I've ever heard, actually. It's actually you read a barcode with the handheld.
Yeah.
And then it sort of algorithm something out of that, and
Yeah.
it's so weird.
Generates random fighters to fight against each other. That's amazing stuff.
I never heard of this barcode battler, released in 91.
91.
And it says here lifespan March 1991.
Yeah.
Yeah, released in 1991 by Epoch or Epoch.
Yeah. Epoch. Yeah.
Epoch.
And then there were all sorts of these cheap designated Tetris-like handhelds, most of them which were called brick game something or other, which had about 100 different play modes, some of which drifted so far from the Tetris genre that they were practically different games made in similar graphics. Like I remember there were some sorts of breakout clones even in the brick setting, and I don't know. It's this very weird sort of a designated thing. But I think they're still available. Some Chinese factories are still making these sorts of Tetris-like things, and they're still cheap, available on eBay. I just checked them out for a couple of days ago. Goes for a few dollars. And yeah, that's another one that I used to play back in the day. And I think some of our friends in my area had a Tamagotchi, if you remember those. But I can't remember if I ever bothered to try one, because...
Tamagotchi?
Yeah, it's one of those...
Not sure if I played those. Are those sort of round little... They're like circle formed. Yeah, I never had those.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm gonna see when they were released. I'm gonna check it up.
I did try a Tamagotchi emulator when one of those things appeared on the PCs, but it was never my thing.
Yeah, released in 96, 97. Yeah, that was, I was 20, 21 then, and I lived very far away from
anything gaming related. Yeah.
Well, I probably played, I remember where I lived in 96, and I remember that I still had my Atari ST. But I didn't game much on it. I used it for Band in a Box.
Oh yeah.
If you remember that.
Well, that's a kind of a game if you're a musician.
Yeah, it's Band in a Box was a software for Atari, maybe also Amiga, that you could load MIDI songs into, and then you could they would play back a song,
chord progression,
usually like a jazz standard or whatever song or a blues song. So it was pretty much for educational purposes, because you could mute an instrument.
Yeah.
And then you play on top of that. So I muted the keyboards, and then I played on top of the MIDI song that was played. So I had drums, upright bass, and maybe some guitar chords or whatever, something. And then I could practice on top of that MIDI song. So that was a program that many of my student colleagues used a lot in the beginning and mid 90s. Band in a Box. Yeah.
Yeah, it was also released for the PC. I remember we had that also in Rovala, which I attended from 2001 to 2003, and they used that also.
Yeah. It's very practical with MIDI tracks, MIDI play like that, because you could raise up the tempo up and down without affecting, without distorting the audio, because there is really no audio in that way, because it's just MIDI signals that is being sent to whatever MIDI device that you're using.
Yeah.
I remember that I had a Roland Sound Canvas. And so my Atari was connected via MIDI cable to that, and then the sound canvas played the song that was that came from the computer. Yeah, that was the mid 90s. So I didn't really have time for. I wasn't really that much into Tamagotchi.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Well, if you're not into Tamagotchi, that's completely understandable in any case, but, you know. Well, yeah, that's a lot of different stuff already. We've been talking for over almost 40 minutes now. What else do we have?
Keep it going. This is going to be a 4-hour episode without any breaks, without anything. You might do some barbecuing in the middle. So if you hear some sort of flamey sounds, you know where it comes from.
Yeah. Of course, it's a bit rainy actually outside right now, so it's not barbecue weather as such. But
yeah, but
anyway.
you barbecue indoors. You
of
said
course,
that.
yeah.
Retrogame Talkshow.
Oh yeah, another subject that was mentioned in the previous episode that I remember was the Zap 64 annual Kickstarter, and there's a new Kickstarter already for the next annual magazine, which has already been, funded. So it's coming out eventually, and it's going to feature just about as many bonus things for pledgers who are willing to throw more money at the team. So before you ask, I already pledged for it, yes, with 2 bonus items being clamshell taped versions of 2 games called The Lord of Dragonspire, and then there was another one called I'm gonna have to check it out later on.
Yeah, sure.
But there was another game from, I think it was the same team actually who did The Lord of Dragonspire.
Okay.
And the Dragonspire game looks to be a game made in the style of the old Master of Magic from Mastertronic, if you remember that. And that's gonna be cool.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
So yeah, lots of more Zap 64 reading to come up. What else?
Yeah, what else have we...
I want to mention something that was, I think it was released, well, not released, but launched just 2 days ago in the UK. I don't think it's available yet anywhere else, but it's a thing called Antstream. I don't know if you've heard of this.
I've heard about it, but I'm not familiar what it is.
Yeah, it's a sort of web-based retro game streaming platform, sort of the Spotify or Netflix of retro gaming, where you can play many games for various different retro platforms. And yeah, it was launched on the 1st of July 2019, and the problem with it that I had was that it needs to have something newer than Windows 7 to make it work, and I still have a Windows 7. So, well, I learned from the very helpful customer service person, who I think was called Jess, I think. Thank you again, Jess, if you're listening, that the application, or at least the installer, is not compatible with Windows 7. So maybe I'm being too retro here. but yeah, it's available for Windows 10, Xbox, Android devices, and Mac OS X. So if you're into that sort of retro gaming possibility of streaming online, then go ahead and try it out.
Okay, what are the prices for that?
The prices are either you subscribe it for about £10 a month, or you can use a annual subscription, and that's going to be like £8 a month.
Okay.
But yeah.
So you don't have to download anything, no emulators, just
no
constant
emulators.
gaming. But you need to have like I guess Google Chrome or Safari if you are on Mac, whatever, like a modern web browser.
I can't say any further because I couldn't install it. But if you have any experiences on that, then you should contact us on Retrogame Talkshow at gmail.com or whatever.
Yeah.
We have Twitter or Instagram.
Yeah, you can send us email regarding anything you want us to talk about. It's always nice to get some suggestions. Retrogametalkshow at gmail.com. We are also on Instagram. Jari is a little bit more active than I am there, but he's posting some really cool pictures from all the hardware retro gear that he has. So follow us there. And then we have a Facebook page where we pretty much only post we announce the new released episode and stuff like that. So there's nothing much more there, but you can send us messages there, of course, as well.
Yeah, and then we have Twitter, but that's pretty much as much used as the Facebook account. But at least we're there.
Yeah.
But yeah, what are your thoughts on Antstream, Bob?
Well,
I know
I wasn't very familiar with it beforehand, but I think that's retro gaming is really popular nowadays, and I think that this can be definitely be a good business model for this company. You sign up, and if you want to play these games, I think it's a great idea in a way, because I think most people that I talk to who are not nerds, but they are my age. And if we talk about, that C64 game or that Amiga game, they get this nostalgic trip just hearing those games, the titles of those games. But then the big hurdle is that how can I play those games?
Exactly,
I get that question from people like, hey, how do you play those games nowadays? And of course I have some of the hardware gear still, but you explain for them, you have to have this emulator, and then already there people are like, I don't, does it work on my? Yeah, there's technical hurdles in the way,
Yeah.
So if they can technically get this page to work well and everything, and I think that's a great model,
Yeah, as long as it's sort of widening its repertoire,
Yeah. And I guess that they have to do a lot of copyright deals with. If they wanna have the full range of great big games, there's gonna be a lot of copyright hurdles for this Antstream to go through as well.
Yeah.
Especially if, as you mentioned, Nintendo is on a rampage towards cracked copies and stuff like that. So you can imagine what deals they have to make to be able to have a stream service like that.
Exactly. But I think Nintendo will have their own sort of streaming services or whatever.
Yeah, maybe that's the new thing now. People don't need emulators. They just you use your web browser to play these games.
Well, at least it's seemed to work on some platforms. I think archive.org has some emulators like MAME installed there already, so you can play some arcade classics on archive.org. So you don't have to bother with the emulation thing yourself. But I don't know, it's a bit of a mixed bag for me, because I like original hardware, and it's always nicer to play it on real retro platforms.
Yeah.
Even though you get load errors and such, but it's part of the deal.
Yeah, but this is I think this is perfect for the casual player who wants to have some fun with the games they played back in the days. And if you, I guess you're logged into your account, so you can probably they might have some sort of snapshot possibilities where so you can continue the game where you stopped it, so you can save the game that way. Then it could be practical in that way as well.
And I guess if there's a good community thing going on, like in Steam or whatever, then it could bring a new sort of element into the retro gaming thing altogether. Maybe playing some decathlon online through streaming services, maybe.
Yeah.
We've done some recommendations and disappointments in our previous episodes on the C64 and arcades, and
we forgot that in our previous episode when we spoke about Atari ST and Amiga, and we forgot to mention that our three recommendations. Of course, my recommendations was pretty much the games that I spoke about. Populous, Dungeon Master. Those were the two games that I especially Dungeon Master. Highly recommended, Populous recommended. It was difficult to come up with more recommendations that I did not mention.
Yeah.
Because the amount of games that I played on the Atari was so much smaller compared to the C64. So it's I didn't play even half the amount of games that I played on the C64.
Yeah, but you focused them more.
I focused a lot on a handful of games that I really played a lot. But I came up with one, a game called Midwinter.
Oh yeah.
Released in 1989.
By Microplay.
Yes. And it was a post-apocalyptic sort of action role-playing game with strategy and survival elements involved in it. Released on Atari ST, Amiga, and PC.
Yeah.
And for some, I didn't have the original. I had a cracked floppy disk of this. But one weird thing was that I had a French language version of the game. And I just thought it was super weird. I was 13?
Yeah.
And I have a memory of, because there is actually pretty much text in the game as well. There are many characters in the game, many characters that you can ally with.
Okay.
And when you read about these characters, it's all in French. But I got somehow so much into that game that I remember that I wrote down on a piece of paper the text in French. And then when I went to my upper elementary school, whatever it's called, the 7th grade in Sweden. I don't know what that's called in English, but I was 13. I brought it to the French teacher in school. I didn't study French. I studied German when I was 13. But I remember that I just bumped into her and she didn't know who I was. And I was like, sorry, this sounds crazy, but I'm playing this computer game called Midwinter, and I have stuff here in French. Can you translate this for me? So she was like, yeah, sure. And then the next day, she had written it down for me in Swedish. And I remember that I was so... It was just about the different factions, like how this character likes this character and this character dislikes that character, and okay. So then I knew a little bit more what kind of group I could form that would work together really well and stuff like that. So it was a lot of it was just a funny thing. But I managed to play the game pretty much anyway, even though it was in French. But yeah, Midwinter.
You didn't learn any French while at it? No.
I don't know. I was more into Italian and English, and I studied German then, but back then also.
Oh, yeah. Retrogame Talkshow.
Yeah, so, well, you did your recommendation. with the obvious two that were already mentioned in the previous episode.
Populous Dungeon Master, Midwinter. Those are my Atari ST recommendations. So go out to the nearest computer store and buy those games.
Yeah, if they're still available. Well, yeah, my recommendations. Well, there are so many great games that we already mentioned in the previous episode, but, since we talked mostly about the games that we both played there, I want to mention some real gems that got overlooked now. First of all, Hunter from Activision. It was released in 1991. It's another one of those 3D third-person kind of action-adventure games, sort of in the vein of Midwinter, but a bit different. It also has the graphics with filled polygons, and it has this great sort of spy movie-like atmosphere, and it's got a lot of variety in weapons, and you get to ride all sorts of vehicles like boats and tanks and even bicycles, whatever. And it has lots of missions with different kinds of ways to get through them, and it has a huge map, and you need to use some pinpointers into, so you can follow where you have to go, because you can't do it like old-fashioned way and just map it yourself. You have to have the in-game map there. And one great effect that I remember about it, was there's a really cool day and night cycle going on all the time. You just sort of play through days and nights as it goes along, and you have to sort of finish these missions within a certain amount of time. And while you go at your missions, the night might turn and into day, and it's just a cool effect while playing it.
I don't think I ever played that game. I'm pretty sure I never played Hunter, but when I look at the graphics, it has a very special sort of graphics. What would you call that?
Well, filled polygons, 3D.
Yeah, it reminds me of Castle Master that we spoke about, and it has a special graphics.
Yeah, highly recommended. Another one that I want to mention is called Lost Dutchman Mine, which I'm pretty sure you never heard of either. It's a game from 1989 from Magnetic Images, another company that probably no one has ever heard of. It's a sort of a light strategy action game in which you play as an old gold miner in the Old West.
Okay.
It's a survival game of sorts. You need to keep the gold miner well fed and rested and defend against natural and human enemies and conditions. You need to sleep up every once in a while and eat and shit. You could fish in the river to get some food. Like there, you don't have to pay for it then, but you need to have fishing rod and stuff like that, which you need to buy. And you can play poker at the saloon, which can also win you some money if you're in dire need. And you can catch villains. Of course, in the Old West, you need to have some villains to catch and claim rewards, etc. But the basic plot is to dig gold from mines and find the lost treasure, obviously, which is always somewhere. But it's also the kind of game where the journey to the end is more interesting than the goal itself, I think. So it's just sort of a good place to be in, sort of a game, instead of just trying to finish it. I think that's why I always played.
I've never played it, never even heard about it. I'm looking at the YouTube video footage here. It looks pretty cool, I have to say. I feel like I want to try to play it.
Yeah, it's definitely recommendable. It's also I only played it on the Amiga, but it was also released for the Atari ST and DOS PCs, So.
Cool. Lost Dutchman Mine.
Yep. Yeah, and I wanted to mention, because I played a lot of Pinball Dreams and Pinball Fantasies, but there are still so many great pinball games around. But these aren't really Amiga and ST specific, so I just try to skip on that, even though they were both some of my favorite games ever on the Amiga. But I definitely wanted to mention Skid Marks as the third one, because released by Acid Software in 1993 originally, only available on the Amiga, the first game in the series. So I think I might have mentioned briefly this game in some other episode, but it's a game I played a lot, and so did most of my Amiga gaming friends in my area. And you needed a half meg RAM expansion for this game to even load. So sort of like Dungeon Master did on the Amiga, but
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, but the more elements you would have, the more memory you had. Like if you had more than just one megabyte RAM, and you would get music and more cars on the road, more different kinds of cars on the road. With just a half meg expansion, you would only get to play against similar cars that you were using. So it's a racing game that is viewed from an isometric, sort of above angled sort of a point of view. And the really cool trick about Skid Marks was that as you were driving, you would get these tire marks on the road. I don't think that was ever used in any racing game before that. So that was kind of cool. And there was a heavy emphasis on specific physics modeling for sliding in that racing game. So that was kind of nice game to grind against friends. There was no real sort of campaign mode as such. You were just driving these random tracks against friends, and that was a cool way to spend an afternoon with.
Yeah, I've never heard about skid marks, and it seems like pretty rare game because it doesn't have. You can't find it on Wikipedia, but the sequel, Super Skid Marks, has a Wikipedia page, but not the skid marks, not the original game.
Yeah, Super Skid Marks was also released for Sega Mega Drive, so it might have been much more well known. And actually, I have the original Skid Marks on the Amiga as a box, one of the rare original games that I have on the Amiga.
Oh yeah.
And I also have the Mega Drive version of Super Skid Marks. So that's how obsessed I am about the game.
I can hear that. Apparently, it was not released. The Super Skid Marks wasn't released on Atari or PC even, according to the Wikipedia page.
No, it's just Amiga and Sega, I think.
And Amiga CD32.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's my 3 recommendations: Hunter, Lost Dutchman Mine, and Skid Marks.
Yeah.
So we should go into disappointments next.
Should I go first?
Go ahead.
This was also difficult to even remember disappointment, because usually disappointments you stop playing them because they are disappointments, and then you
exactly.
But I came up with 3, and one of them, the first one I mentioned maybe in our Last Ninja episode, that Last Ninja 3 I had on as the only Last Ninja game in the series that I had on my Atari ST.
Yeah.
There's not much to say about that, and I don't want to say much about it either, but
we said enough. I think we said enough in the Last Ninja episode, so if you want to hear us talk about Last Ninja 3, then you should check out our Ninja Nostalgia episode.
Yeah, we had an episode that we dedicated just to the Last Ninja series, but I mentioned there that that after, because it's such a great series on the C64, that seeing this and hearing this soundtrack on Atari ST was a disappointment in that way. Probably high expectations, because I thought, hey, a bigger computer, and then by definition that would be better, but it didn't turn out
Yeah.
that way. But another game that was a disappointment was released by Psygnosis called Barbarian, and we're not talking about the Barbarian game where the still picture with 2 players
Yeah.
chop their heads off. We're talking about this scroller platformer. Yeah.
Yeah, just to make sure everyone knows what we're talking about. The other one was released by Palace Software, and it had the head chopping and everything.
Yeah, and the green little goblin coming and kicking your head when it's rolling around on the floor.
Yeah.
And
The
this-
Psygnosis one is completely different.
It's a completely different game, but it's called Barbarian. And what I remember from that was that I tried to play it, and the controls is just a big disaster.
Yep.
And that was really, of course, saying that it was a disappointment is maybe not completely correct, because that would imply that I had expectations, but I did not. I didn't even know about the game, but it was just a disappointment. Trying it all over again, and it never really happened. So,
Well, I guess the expectation is in the name, because you were expecting a great Barbarian game like the C64 Barbarian was. So
yeah, I knew it wasn't the Palace Software version, but yeah, you're right. The name implies,
something much cooler. Yeah.
yeah, for a young teenager at that time. And my third disappointment is gonna be Road Runner. And the reason why I came up with that just before we recorded this was that for some weird reason, when you and I talked on Skype just like 3 hours ago, whatever, I started to hum this, and,
Yeah, the
and I was
Looney
like,
Tunes.
why do I have that in my head? And I still don't know why, by the way. That's just and then I asked you, what is that? And then you said that is the Looney Tune cartoons intros, right?
Yep.
And then you said something like, yes, like Road Runner, no? Something like that. Okay. Oh, maybe I just came up with, oh yeah, didn't we talk about Road Runner?
Yeah, exactly.
And then I recall that it was... Sorry?
Yeah, but it was already like 2 or 3 hours ago, so we can't remember.
Yeah.
We're getting old.
Yeah, but Road Runner popped into my head, and that game, same thing. I played it. I tried to play it a lot, but I didn't like the controls, and it was gave me anxiety.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, these disappointments. I never want to talk about them. I just realized that. Also, when we did the C64 disappointment, I just want to say the name of the title and then forget about it.
Yeah. But hey, it's a good public service announcement that just keep away from these games, people.
Yeah, so if you bump into this game in your local grocery store, don't buy them.
Exactly. Okay, my disappointments then. Well, I hate to mention this, but well, first of all, Whizball on both 16-bits. I mean Amiga and Atari ST, because the controls are very much different to what we've been used to on the C64, and there's some sort of a weird cuteness about it that doesn't fit the game at all if you've gotten used to the C64 version as we do. And well, the music is very different, I think, and that's a big minus. And I don't know, there's just something that doesn't click for me in the 16-bit versions of Whizball, so that's a big disappointment on all accounts. Another 8-bit original that I want to mention is Gianna Sisters, particularly on the Atari ST, because it doesn't scroll. It's a flip screen sort of method that it uses. Oh, and that's a horrible way to play Gianna Sisters and any platform game that's supposed to scroll. And there's also in both Amiga and Atari versions the sort of jumping mechanics are very different to how the C64 version plays, because it's a bit more angular, I think, and it it's not as analog feeling as the originals. So that's something that I really didn't like about the 16-bit versions. Also, the music is kind of less characteristic. So
I have a question about it though. Did it still scroll from left to right at least?
Yes, at least it did. But
okay.
yeah,
so they got that right.
That's the only thing that they got right. No, but it's not a bad game on either. But it's just, for me, it was a big disappointment on both versions because it just didn't feel right, mostly. But the last one I chose for disappointment on, well, I only played it on Amiga, but the disappointment was such a big one that I never touched it again. Police Quest 3. And I think it could be a great game, but the mark that it left on me when I tried to play it first on the Amiga, mind you, the Amiga that I played it on had a 1 meg, RAM expansion. It still had, I think it had 5 or 6 discs that needed to be switched all the time. And even before getting into the game itself, I remember you had to switch the first 2 discs, like the boot disc and the first disc, at least 16 times before getting into the game itself.
Jeez.
And that was a big no-no for me. I couldn't get into the game after that. It was such a major disappointment. I should probably test it out on PC, but I just can't get myself to try it. I don't know why.
Yeah. I mean, you have 3 really big titles.
Yeah.
Which, in a way, that's of course, Last Ninja 3 might be a big title, but Roadrunner Barbarian, not so much expectations to those games. But you really had 3. Okay, Police Quest 3 might not be as big as Police Quest 1 and 2, but Wistful and Giant Sisters, we're talking like huge titles on the 8-bit machines,
Yeah, exactly. But there you go. We finally have our recommendations and disappointments for the 16-bits. So
yeah,
we can...
and we caught up a bit of things we had forgotten to mention. Yeah, and we have listened to some music in this episode as well. As you people have heard, we have sneaked in some tracks here and there that are somehow related to what we're talking about, or not related to what we talk about. We'll see later when DJ Bob and Jari squeeze in music here and there,
Yeah. I think next episode will be more regular sort of a thing. Whatever we can come up with. We haven't really decided upon the topic for that, but
yeah, we have a tribute episode to make.
Yeah, at least that.
Yeah,
for Ben Daglish.
Exactly, that could be something to focus on. Let's see. We have learned not to make any promises, but thinking out loud, that's definitely one tribute episode we will make in the future. We have in that episode we have tons of great tracks to choose from to listen to, so it will be a very music focused episode.
Oh, definitely. And we can focus also on the games that feature those music. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, should we call it a day?
Maybe.
It's been a
hour and 13 minutes now.
Yeah, plus music, so this might be like a 2-hour episode. Who knows? Who know what the time will tell, literally.
Exactly.
But hey, Jari, it's been a pleasure, man. Thanks for this.
It has. Thank you.
And people, thank you for listening. And remember, send us email retrogame Talkshow @gmail.com.
Also visit our Facebook and Twitter and Instagram pages. Throw us some comments, please.
Yeah.
Oh, and yeah, before I forget, we also have Patreon and Ko-fi pages, so you can pledge us some small coins if you want.
Yeah, pledge us €1, $1,
Yeah.
£1, something like that if you appreciate what we are doing. Was there something else? No, I don't think there was anything. Yes, you will find links to those things in the description to this episode, either if you watch it on YouTube or if you listen on Spreaker or Podcast Addict or whatever platform you listen to, because there are many different ways to listen to this, you know. We have actually no idea who, like, where do people listen to us? We don't know. There's iTunes, there's Spotify.
Exactly.
You know, all kind of things. So.
But hey, until next time, thanks for listening. I'm Jari.
And I'm Bob Engstrand. Take care, people. Bye-bye.